Management Committee. It's Tuesday, June 10th. We've been just joined by Councilmember Jack Weiss, and we're expecting Councilmember Jose Rizar. I'd like to welcome our Planning Director, Gail Goldberg. Welcome back. We have quite a few candidates for commission. And before we get started with asking our volunteers to come up, we'll just go through the agenda real fast as to what's being called special and which items will be continued. So items 2 through 8 will be commission appointees. Number 9 we'll move to adopt. Okay, we'll report on number 9, so we'll call that special. 10 we'll call special, 11 special, 12 A and B will be called special. Item 13 we'll see in plum July 1st and should be scheduled for council on July 16th. That's for both 13A and B. 14 we'll call special. 15A and B, we will continue. We'll continue that item, those items I should say, 15A and B, till June 17th in plum and July 1st in council. And 16, we'll have our director's report. And 17, we won't have a report for this committee. So that being said, I'd like to welcome our first. I know everyone has a busy schedule. I wish I could accommodate everyone and say you're first, but we'll go through the line just to be fair with it for everyone. So I appreciate your patience. I'd like to call up Mr. Steve Cochran for the South Valley APC. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Could you just state for us what the reason for being on the commission from your point? I know it's a reappointment.
Yes, sir.
So what vision, what have you taken away from your previous experience, and what would you like to improve upon? Pick any one of those topics.
Yes, sir.
Would you mind speaking in the microphone?
Yes, sir. I put in my hat for this because I am a supporter of the mayor, and I'm very happy with the direction he is going. I would like to contribute as much as I can, and I've had the good fortune of working with Ms. Goldberg and her fine staff. I want to see just some even-handed fairness at the commission level, grow more trees, and beautify the community.
Great, Mr. Cochran. Any questions, my colleague?
No, good luck. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your service. We look forward to seeing you on the council.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Our next speaker, Sean O. Burton, West Los Angeles, APC.
Good afternoon.
Also a reappointment.
Is it Sean O. apostrophe Burton?
Well, the way it's,
Like NATO Holden?
I don't know, is it?
No, it's its own. It's O period.
Oh, okay.
Well, welcome back, sir. It's a reappointment.
Thank you.
Would you like to share a few thoughts with us before we...
Just again, to commend the excellent job that the planning department does. They're very well prepared. The reports are done very well. And also the city attorney. We're lucky to have Ms. Cardenas as our city attorney, and they do just a tremendous job. So we're lucky to work with them.
Any questions, sir?
He's a slick politician.
You said that, I didn't.
You want to keep doing this, you know?
I enjoy it tremendously. So thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your hard work, sir.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to seeing you in the council. Our next is Mr. Juan Jose Rodriguez, North Valley APC.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, I've been doing this since last September, and it's been a tremendous 9 months. I've learned quite a bit, and it's been an experience where I think I've learned much more on how the city operates, even though I have had worked before with the city. what I enjoy about it is that I'm leaving, I think, hopefully, a positive legacy to my children and to my nieces and nephews who live here in the city of LA and the North Valley. So that is, I hope to continue. I'd like to continue and to continue to serve our city and specifically my community.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. I know it's a reappointment. Any questions from my colleague? Seeing none, I want to thank you again for your hard work and sticking with your commitment to this great city. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you for the privilege.
Thank you. Our next speaker, we'd like to hear from Ms. Marsha L. Brown, and that's to the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So this also is a reappointment?
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much. It's been my honor to serve on the Board of Building and Safety Commission, and I'm very dedicated to ensuring that the citizens of Los Angeles are safe. And we have an excellent staff under the leadership of the General Manager, Andrew Adelman, and I look forward to hopefully a reappointment.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, I know it's an award-winning department.
Yes.
But I did want to ask a question regarding the multilingual nature of our environment here in this great city and the cultural issues that must come before you when dealing with property and the whole notion of communication. Do you see that improving, or do you see us doing anything else that might enhance?
Absolutely. I have a master's degree in marriage, family, child counseling with a concentration in multiculturalism. And we see a wide range of ethnic diversity coming before the commission. And I have to say the department is very adept and very good at handling our multicultural population in Los Angeles. And should the need arise, we do have interpreters available to translate, but our number one goal is to service the people who come before our board and that go into all the different offices of the Building and Safety Department on a daily basis.
Great.
So we do get a lot of letters of commendation that come into our office very frequently.
Great. Again, thank you for your service. Any questions,
Thank you.
my colleague? Well, thank you, and we'll be moving to reappoint you and see you in council.
I am very grateful, and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. My understanding that Mr. David White won't be joining us today, but I'd like to move to reappoint him as well. Do I have a second on that? Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Diego Cardoso, /artist, /photographer, /MTA expert, did I miss anything?
Thank you. You said it all.
Okay. Welcome, sir.
You asked the questions. I have had an incredible 2 years as a planning commissioner. Enjoy working with the commission. Clearly understood the directives from the mayor, and also clearly understood the issues raised by the city council and the council members. Land use, it's a very complex issue, but it's not that difficult to understand and deal with it. And I'm looking forward to continue working with you and the incredible planning director that we have, staff, and then making things happen.
Great. Well, I'm very happy to see you in that position. I know as a former planning deputy, with a former council member, and with all the experiences you've had in the past, it's good to have an individual who can see the subject matter from so many different perspectives, and we truly need that type of objectivity and analysis as we go through these complex issues. Any questions from my colleague? Look forward to seeing you in the city council.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker, Mr. Luis Lopez. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thank you.
Also a reappointment?
Yes.
How long were you with the commission before?
Been on approximately a year.
A year?
Served 4 years on the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council before that. So it's been a nice opportunity to now be on the commission and having before been on the Neighborhood Council. So delighted to serve.
Great. So you're not tired yet?
No.
Okay. Any questions, my colleague? Again, this would be for the East Los Angeles APC. Just one question: as the cases come before you, the notion of the need for housing versus the whole tension that comes from change. How often do these cases come before you, and what type of dialogue do you find yourself in when you do come across those types of cases?
I guess I would say quite frequently, and it's been an interesting challenge to work with, and I think you just take it on a case-by-case basis, but certainly it's a challenge that I think we're dealing with across the city. So,
Okay. Well, we will see you in City Council. We'll be reappointing at that time. So thank you so much for your support for this great city. Thank you, sir. Okay, so all the commissioners and we have reviewed today have been approved, and we'll be seeing them in council, knowing that the proper paperwork has been submitted to the Ethics Commission, and we look forward to seeing them in council. So I believe that takes care of most of the items. What I'd like to do as far as appointments is perhaps have our director give us a report, and then we can go through the items after that.
Thank you very much, Chairman Reyes. It's a pleasure to be here today, especially, and witness the number of folks who have served on commissions in this city who are willing, able, and still enthusiastic about returning to continue service. We are extremely fortunate in this city to have those kinds of volunteers. I wanted to take this first opportunity to thank the committee members for their support during our budget process. We were extremely fortunate to be able to add additional staff to the planning department to continue our work on the community plans, and we are very grateful for the continued support that we have from you and from the other council members. I also wanted to mention that we have talked in the past about the reorganization of the planning department around geographic areas. We have completed the work that we needed to do in our Valley office, and by July 1, we expect to have a full contingent of staff in the Valley office to make it a one-stop planning center, and we are very pleased about that. We will be providing full service to the public, and we will be doing both long-range and case processing at the Valley office. So we will have in place our first two geographic teams. As you will recall, we expect to have a geographic team formed for each of our area planning commissions, and on the geographic team we will have the full component of planners and environmental folks so that we can better connect, I hope, with not only the community but with the council districts. So communities and council districts will know who your planners are, who your case processors are, and we think that this is a huge step forward in bringing planning closer to the community. So those will be our first two, and as we move folks from downtown to the Valley, it will create space, and we will begin to do the physical changes that we need to make on the floors so that we can have the other 5 teams in place as soon as possible. I also wanted to tell you that I'm very pleased to announce that we have hired another deputy director for planning, and starting next Monday, Vince Bertoni, who is a certified planner and who currently serves as the community development director and the former planning director of Beverly Hills. Vince has served in California cities in a number of them, but he is also an important and active member of the planning community. He currently serves as chair of the California chapter of the American Planning Association. He served on national boards, a longtime Los Angeles resident who has been very anxious to be a part of real planning in this city. And Vince will start next Monday, and we are extremely pleased about that. I also wanted to mention that we have been talking for some time about our housing element for the city, and this Thursday we will have the first of two joint commission hearings on the housing element. The City Planning Commission and the Housing Commission will meet this Thursday morning for their first part of the hearing. They will continue on June 26th. And we expect to have the housing element to you in the very near future. I also wanted to let you know that we have been very active in pursuing the 12-to-2 process that we have talked about before. Development processing reform is very important in this city, not simply to help developers get through more quickly, but to better connect project review and approval with real plans so that the projects that we get really contribute to making neighborhoods better. I noticed that you asked the question of one of our commissioners about the constant balance that we are trying to do between providing for new people who are coming to our city and at the same time improving neighborhoods and trying to improve the quality of life for people who live here now. And that, for me, is a really important part of 12-to-2. It's not just about making development go faster, it's about getting better projects into our neighborhoods, projects that are better connected with plans. So we are making progress. We have been meeting every 2 weeks. We expect within the next couple of weeks to come out with the first steps that we are going to take to begin, as I said before, to have a better process, but also to connect it better with the plans. So you'll be hearing from us very shortly on the work that we're doing on 12-to-2. I also wanted to end by saying that for a long time, the work of the planning department and the planning work of the city has gone unnoticed and unrewarded, I think, both locally and nationally, but that is changing. And the APA, the American Planning Association, has announced their 2008 awards. And while we have rarely been on past lists, I know, however, that you have been received a Distinguished Leadership in Planning Award. This year, we are getting awards for our walkability checklist. We are getting awards for our community design overlays in Venice, San Pedro, and Westchester, for our Northeast LA Hillside work program, for our Survey LA and our Office of Historic Resources website, for our Industrial Land Use Policy Project, and for our Historic Homeowner Education Program. And the Distinguished Leadership Award for an elected official this year is going to Council President Eric Garcetti. And they have been very kind and are giving me the Distinguished Leadership Award for a professional planner. But the important thing here is that the City of LA is very well represented, and we are hopeful that many of our projects will not only continue to be honored locally, but will be a part of a statewide competition, and we're hopeful that we will be honored at a state level. We also, last week, received an Aia Award. It was the President's Award that was given to urban design teamwork and for creating the downtown street standards and the urban design standards and guidelines. So I'm very pleased that people are noticing the work that is occurring in this city and are taking note of it. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to be back.
Thank you, Director Goldberg, and congratulations to you and the department for all the hard work. I'm sure all these awards and the product that is generated by that effort will translate into some very real changes for the people that live here day to day. throughout the city, and that, I think, will be the true measure of how effective we are in terms of stimulating those positive changes and addressing many of the issues that right now we are struggling with.
Right.
So thank you, Director Goldberg, and thank you for your hard
We
work.
could not do it without the continued support of this committee, and I want to thank you all for all of the support you're providing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues, Director? No? Okay. All right, folks, so let's get to the agenda as far as our subject matters. And Roberto, let's start with number one.
Item 1, Councilman, is a motion, Reyes-Perez, instructing planning to prepare an amendment to the Central City specific plan for an off-site sign, and there's a spelling error as to the street. It should be denoted that it's James M. Wood, not Woods, and I believe you can refer this to staff, planning staff, city attorney, in consultation with your office.
Okay, we will do that, but first we have two cards on the table. We have with us Myung-Soo Seok from the LA County Federation and Gary H. Cook.
We'll just make our remarks real quick.
You guys will do a duet?
My name is Myung-Soo Seok. I'm the Development Director at the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor. I'm here on behalf of our Executive Secretary Treasurer, Maria Elena Durazo, who unfortunately couldn't be here due to scheduling conflict. However, we submitted for your review a letter of support. And just to summarize the essence of it is that the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor is really excited and looking forward to a unique partnership that could be created out of this project. As all of you are aware, the community surrounding the proposed site area has tremendous needs, and this unique partnership can and will create a tremendous opportunity to allow our Plumbers Local 78, Miguel Contreras Learning Complex Foundation, and the local community to create a meaningful community benefits program which will support critical programs for families and children in that area. And especially in light of the looming cuts in the budget, both at the city and the state level, we believe that these services and unique funding sources can and will become even more critical and helpful to the surrounding community, and we will look forward to working together on this.
Okay. Sir?
Plumbers Local is also looking forward to working with the community, and we think it's a great chance to do so.
Okay. Just state your name one more time. I didn't hear it.
Gary Cook.
Gary Cook. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. What we'll be doing is referring this to the planning department with the assistance of the city attorney and working with my office to move this forward. We want to make this as transparent as public as possible, so when we come back, we'll take the next steps in realizing our goals with this motion.
Just one correction, it's James Wood as opposed to Wood, to the agenda.
Yeah, exactly. With the correction. Have a second on that? Yes? Okay. We'll move that forward. Next item.
Next item, Councilman, is item 9. It's a motion, Riza Rosenthal, directing planning to amend the Central City Community Plan and the transportation element. This has to do with the redesignation of a segment of 14th Street in CD 14 to a collector street. And the motion, you may wish to adopt it and refer it to the council, Councilman.
So I understand we have a report from the planning department on this item.
Good afternoon, council members. Patricia Diefendorfer, planning staff. We don't have a report so much as we just wanted to request a couple of clarifications to the motion. Specifically, the redesignation of the street, in order to consider a vacation, would have to be redesignated to a local rather than a collector. The motion reads that it would go from a secondary to a collector. It should actually read that it should go from a secondary to a local. And the other clarification is that it should probably also be referred to the Department of Transportation, because we're going to need their assistance in doing an analysis of the potential impacts of downgrading and subsequently vacating the street.
Are we okay with that, Councilman? So that'll be fine.
Okay.
With those corrections.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Our next item, Roberto.
The next item, Councilman, is item 10. It's an appeal by Michelle Mendelson. She's appealing the action of the West LA APC as relates to the approval of a track map for a new maximum 4-unit residential condominium. And I believe planning staff is present.
Okay, planning staff? Right, it's been closed, public hearing's been closed, so let's hear from the staff and see where we're at.
I believe Richard Gervais for the TAPE Planning Department subdivisions. I believe where we were when we met last week was the Bureau of Engineering was going to confirm the issue of when you do an easement, you do not subtract that area of land from the net lot area at the end of the day. And I thought somebody from Bureau of Engineering was going to be here. I got an email. Oh. And that's where it stands.
Okay, we were supposed to have some clarity as to the definition and the regulation of that space.
Okay, so my understanding is that Bureau of Engineering did confirm and explain the calculation here and the rationale for it and why they used the method that they used.
Yes.
And that is consistent with your department's understanding of the situation and your department's recommendation. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, based on that, colleagues, I would move approval of the position that the department has put forth, that's denial of the appeal? Okay. For the reasons stated by the department last week at the public hearing.
Thank you.
Okay, so that'll be the action of this committee to deny the appeal filed by Michelle Mendelson and thereby sustain the entire decision of the West LA APC in approving tentative tract number 7003 composed of one lot for a new maximum 4-unit residential condominium in the QRD 2-1BL-0 zone for property at 1333 Beverly Green Drive, subject conditions of approval. Okay, our next item, Roberto.
The next item, Councilman, is an appeal by the Buckley School. Actually, there's 3 appeals: the Buckley School, an appeal by Larry Daughtery, and also an appeal by Arnold Newman. And there's also a 245 motion submitted by Councilman Weiss.
I mean, just technically, aren't we just here on a 245 and not on an appeal, Ms. Cardenas?
For the record, Sharon Cedar Cardenas. Councilman, the council asserted jurisdiction over the action of the City Planning Commission on the parcel map. Therefore, the appeals that had been before the Planning Commission are now before this body.
Okay.
Makes sense, okay.
So we've done a 245. Let's ask the staff to come forward, please. We have staff, please. I know you're here. Can we call in the staff? Tell them they're ready.
Hey, go Bears, man. I'm trying to go to the opening game.
Make sure you mention it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Harper.
Chairman Reyes and members of the committee. My name is Lynn Harper. I was the Deputy Advisory Agency on this case. You have before you an appeal that comes to you through the 245 process from the in lieu of the Planning Commission. It's an appeal of a 2-parcel subdivision of the 19-acre Buckley Private School site. There were actually 3 appeals of this approval of the 2-parcel subdivision. One was from the applicant, the Buckley School, another from Dr. Arnold Newman, and a third from the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. There were multiple issues in these appeals, but to summarize so that you have a chance to listen to the parties that are in attendance here today, the main issues are the improvements or proposed improvements on...
Ms. Harper, would you mind speaking into the microphone so we can hear you better?
Oh, you can't hear me? Oh, there you go. Okay, thank you. That's better. The major issues that just to summarize, are the nature of the improvements along Camino de la Cumbre, whether or not there will be traffic loops on the driveways in and out of the campus, the design standards for the back gate, and the landscaping along Camino de la Cumbre, and some minor issues related to the provision of solar panels on roofs and the annual transportation demand management report. There's also an issue outstanding in these appeals on the Saturday construction hours. I can go into more details on these if you want, or we can just let the different appellants address them as they come up.
Well, I know, how long was the hearing at commission?
It was 5 hours. It's from probably 1 o'clock to after 6 o'clock. And we also had a 3-hour joint hearing with the parcel map and the conditional use permit. So there's been over 8 hours of public hearing and discussion.
Public hearing for 8 hours, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming everything that has been said has been put
Yes,
on the
a lot
record?
has been said.
Okay. How many cards do we have here? What I'd like to do, colleagues, if you feel it's appropriate, unless you want to go longer, maybe give each side 15 minutes on each side, or do we just want to go to 1 minute each speaker card?
I think 15 minutes on each side is probably too much for this, for what we're talking about here. What we're talking about, Mr. Chair, is the parcel map and this precise issue of improvement on a street. It's not the CUP involving the conditions of approval and the operations of the school.
It's not the whole case.
It's not the whole case. It has to be piecemealed because procedurally it had to be. So I don't know. While you're counting up the cards, I'd like Mr. Saidi just to set the stage for us,
please,
from the other department. And thank you, Ms. Harper, for your report.
Ray Saidi, Bureau of Engineering.
Please, sir.
That's the engineering.
It's okay. Keep your composure. You're all right.
Okay. Ray Saidi, Bureau of Engineering. I'm here to answer any question, any ambiguity regarding one of the condition. Apparently, is condition number 6C, approved by Planning Commission.
Well, let's just hear from the public, then we'll call them up.
Okay, then let's go through the appellants first. Then.
Sure.
Okay. Let's start with the first appellant. Come on up. You can form your own line. Okay, go ahead.
Council members, I'm Cindy Sterrett from Latham and Watkins on behalf of the Buckley School. And if we could take perhaps 5 to 10 minutes of the initial 10 minutes just to explain the project to you.
Well, let's give you 5 minutes
Okay.
for your presentation as an appellant.
So I'll take 5 minutes and explain the project, and then my partner David Goldberg will address the Camino de la Cumbre, and we have an alternative suggestion for the improvement.
I actually think, and I'll say this to both sides, my recommendation is that we do not need to go into the project today. We're just here for Camino de la Cumbre. I will stipulate that the point of the project is to take traffic off of Camino de la Cumbre, if that makes things easier for everybody, because that's true. Let's just deal with the precise issue we have here, because otherwise it just gets
So again, let's stay focused on 5 minutes. That's all you have.
Yes, sir. We can submit the request that we have before the committee, which is for an alternative condition for the improvement of Camino de la Cumbre. And then there are 3 conditions of the parcel map that conflict with the decisions that the Planning Commission made on the CUP. So we're asking that those 3 parcel map conditions also be corrected. And so I'll turn in these green sheets.
Please, thank you.
And then I also just have a map that might be a little easier for. And just to, the Buckley School is located at the end of Stansbury in the Sherman Oaks community. The property is actually a former country club, and its main entrance is a gate on Stansbury Avenue south of Ventura. And we have an aerial photograph here, but I've just handed you a map where you can see Valley Vista Boulevard, Stansbury Avenue, which is the entrance gate to the school. The way the access works now is that you can enter from Stansbury until that gate is locked at 6 p.m. You drive through the campus, To get to the buildings, the athletic field is in the middle of this picture from the sort of the bottom of the access road. And then there's a gate at Camino de la Cumbre, and it's right across from the baseball field. You can see a little blue circle there that says Camino de la Cumbre. Under the current conditions, the gate has to be locked at 6 p.m. on Stansbury, which means after 6 p.m., all exiting traffic must exit out of Camino de la Cumbre. The project, and I won't go into detail on it, but the project is intended to...
I'm sorry, Ms. Greaves, can you start the time?
Yeah.
Sure. The project is intended to bring the campus, which was built in the 1960s, up to modern educational standards, but it's also intended to increase sustainability. One of the things we're doing is greening the center roadway, so traffic will no longer come in off Stansbury and exit off of Camino de la Cumbre. In the future, it will come in and go into a garage. Stansbury will be open later in the evenings, and the Planning Commission approved that, so the traffic can exit off of Stansbury. So we'll have very minimal use of Camino de la Cumbre. However, we also have a parcel map with this project, and in connection with the parcel map, the original requirement from Bureau of Engineering was to completely improve Camino de la Cumbre. We have about 2,000 lineal feet of footage on Camino de la Cumbre. It's a rural street. It only has a couple of houses on it. And the original condition we estimated would have been about a $10 million cost to the school for a street we're decreasing traffic on. The Planning Commission tried hard to come up with a compromise at their hearing in light of our appeal and Mr. Arnie Newman's appeal, and we both agree Camino should stay as a rural street and the trees should not be eliminated by virtue of this improvement. However, the compromise condition that the Planning Commission came up with still doesn't work for reasons we described in our letter to you. And so I'd like to ask my partner David Goldberg to describe the alternative condition. We've been meeting with BOE for the last 2 or 3 weeks that we've come up with and would like to propose.
Please.
Good afternoon, David Goldberg of Latham & Watkins. We have proposed an alternative improvement for Camino de la Cumbre in consultation with the school's engineers and after conducting multiple site visits with the Bureau of Engineering. That improvement is a targeted improvement on a portion of the street that requires some of the most work. It's 55 lineal feet, and it involves stabilizing the street with retaining walls, resurfacing new curb and gutter. The estimated cost, as shown here, the estimated cost is between $400,000 and $500,000, according to Buckley's engineers and contractors, and we believe it's a compromise that would provide for a greater community benefit with less impact to the trees and more cost-effective as well, given the school's reduction of usage on the street. And of course, we'd be happy to answer questions about that proposal, and we have the school's engineers as well. In addition to that, we've also proposed an additional street dedication along Camino to ensure that the existing roadway will be completely within city right-of-way, because under existing conditions right now, portions of the roadway are actually on Buckley property. So we've proposed more dedication than what was required by the Bureau of Engineering's recommendation. And then the third component of our proposal is the voluntary offer, which we've made in our prior hearings, of a $50,000 neighborhood protection fund, which could be used for funding to enhance pedestrian or vehicular safety along the street, as well as beautification along that frontage in terms of enhanced fencing and landscaping. And we've been meeting with the community to discuss the types of things they'd like to see up there. So that's the proposal for Camino. As Cindy mentioned, there were a few other minor clarifications that we've requested to parcel map conditions, 2 of those to ensure consistency with the CUP conditions. Those are detailed in our handout, and I can walk through a couple of those if I have the time to do so. If not, I can respond to questions.
Okay.
With the 1 minute I have left, I'll focus on the main one. There's a condition, CM18, equipment storage areas, that requires a 150-foot buffer between staging areas and the neighboring residents. This is a standard city condition that unfortunately doesn't take into account the details of this site. We have a 50-foot landscape buffer, and we're hoping that the condition can be revised just to acknowledge that, since this area over here in beige is the only area on site during the first phase of construction where we can do any construction staging. And I'll let my partner.
And I'm Cindy Starrett, and I'd also just like to note, in the interest of your time, we've asked the Buckley supporters not to speak, but if we could ask them to stand, all the people that are here from the Buckley School and in support of the Buckley School. We have 900 supporters in the immediate community. The Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council has endorsed the project. It's actually been a 10-year process. It's been a wonderful process, and we'd like to reserve the ability to respond to any questions and comments that are raised.
Okay, thank you. I do have one question, Ms. Starrett. Camino de la Cumbre, what does that mean? What's the translation to that?
I am the wrong person to ask, except for street.
Okay, well, I hope someone knows before the end of this evening. No?
Mr. Arnie Newman is one of the other appellants, and
road to the top of the mountain.
So
All
mountain
right.
means cumbre? Mountain is cumbre, I guess.
All right.
Mountaintop, okay.
Okay, got you.
And Mr. Newman has led us to work with the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy
That's my
also.
favorite multicultural moment in my 7 years here.
Hey, see, now we can all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Okay, folks. Our next appellant, Arnold Newman. What does this mean?
Thank you very much. And we have other speakers, so am I to assume 15 minutes for my appeal?
Oh, no. It's 5 minutes per appellant.
Per speaker?
Appellant.
I see. All right. I would like to first address that the following agencies and organizations wish to make a statement of overriding considerations regarding the BOE curb and gutter recommendations. These are the previous recommendations. These same organizations about to be mentioned are in full support of the new BOE and Buckley School compromise on this 50-foot, 55-foot area that is in need of repair instead of being cosmetic, is in need of repair because floodwater in this one spot actually dips towards the downslope, whereas the road is engineered to take water along the high cliff edge of the street, if you follow that. And so this water is, in some portion during flood stages, going over the berm and causing, so far, minor gully erosion. So this needs to be corrected. Even though it's taking retaining walls with it, there is, in my inspection, one mature walnut that will possibly be affected, possibly not, because it's downslope enough. There's another pole tree that will probably be taken out, but it's only about 10 years old. These are the organizations which support this measure. That is the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council, the Federation of Hillside and Canyon Associations, the San Fernando Valley Federation, the Sierra Club, the Ecological Center of Southern California, my organization, the International Society for Preservation of Tropical Rainforest, and the new Oak Forest Canyon Homeowners Association, which represents 310 homes that are placed in Oak Forest Canyon that we're referring to, that Camino de la Cumbre serves. During meetings and petitions and other contact in canvassing, we have had all but 2 homes that were for the apparent road work. All else were either against it or we got no response. I must say this, that to understand, both Fossil Ridge State Park and Oak Forest Canyon State Parks are contiguous to Buckley School. Camino de la Cumbre runs right through these 2 parks and is the public entrance to it. And so this BOE recommendation, this new compromise, avoids the destruction of 49 major trees, including oaks and walnut. Some of the oaks were saplings when Columbus discovered America. This will all be avoided by this compromise. It is a perfect compromise and absolutely applauded by the aforementioned organizations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for
I'll
that.
give these petitions for the record.
For that insight. Okay. Our next speaker will be the appellant representing the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. Do we have an appellant representative?
Good afternoon. My name is Vivian Gumbiner, and I'm representing the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association.
If I may, just give us your name and address, and if you speak into the microphone, we can hear you better. Thank you.
My name is Vivian Gumbiner. My address is 3767 Camino de la Cumbre, Sherman Oaks, 91423, and I'm representing the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. The city has asked for curbs and gutters on Camino de la Cumbre. The neighbors contend that the street should also be repaved. The BOE has stated that only 3 trees at most would be harmed in this process. For 40 years, the school has used Camino de la Cumbre, which is a substandard street, for its cars, trucks, and heavy school buses. The condition of the street is so bad that there are sandbags along a good portion of the street in several areas. I mentioned safety earlier. A large portion of the street just south of the school failed 3 years ago and collapsed down the hillside. The damage was so severe that FEMA funds had to be used to repair the street. If a collapse of this nature were to happen adjacent to the school, the results would be deadly. Children would be killed. Does the city want to open itself up to the kind of lawsuits that would follow such a disaster? Frankly, I'm shocked that the school is willing to take such risks with the safety of its students. Requiring the school to provide the BOE recommendations is not a hardship. The school's expansion project is a $70 million project. If they were to spend just 1% of their budget on the BOE's recommendations, the neighborhood would be a lot safer. By the way, when I built my home 15 years ago, the city required us to put in curbs and gutters, and they did not give us a cap for our budget on what we had to spend to improve the street. In fact, we spent more than 1% of our budget on these improvements. Let's face it, the city budget is tight. This is the only opportunity to improve Camino. Why would the city council or any group vote to make it easier for the developer of a large project to be exempt from the basic requirements asked by the BOE? All the neighbors are asking is that you ensure the school be required to be responsible as a citizen. In addition, the applicant should be required to tear down the rusty fence on Camino de la Cumbre that has separated the school from the neighborhood for the past several decades, and install a wrought iron fence that is more appropriate to the surrounding neighborhood. The fence is rusty and horrible looking. The current fence is not grandfathered in because each parcel is reevaluated when the applicant asks for deviations from the code, and new parcel codes would apply. On paragraph 5 of page A8 of Lynn Harper's report, it states that only service vehicles will have access from Camino de la Cumbre after the improvements. This should be changed to emergency vehicles only. The BOE recommended street widening. That is now off the table, and since it is off the table and Camino de la Cumbre is a substandard street, it should be used as little as possible. Earlier, Lynn Harper spoke about traffic loops. Can I go into that now? Is that something that's going to be discussed? Because there was inaccurate information given at the previous CPC meeting.
This is your 5 minutes as an appellant, so you can use it any way you want.
No, I have more.
Well, you got 1 minute and 40 seconds.
For our entire group?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll speak about the traffic loops. The information is incorrect. I've presented correct amounts in my report.
Okay.
Hi. I just want to know if we could have an extra minute or two.
Well, please
Okay.
continue.
All right. I'm going to have Barbara Case come up, and then I'll close. Go ahead, Barbara. You've got 1 minute.
Okay. I hope that everybody had a chance to look at these photographs of the condition of Camino de la Cumbre, which is falling apart and has already been closed in 2005 for 5 months. There's pictures of mature trees in the area growing on curbs, and we believe that only 2 or 3 trees would be affected. I also have pictures of gates in the community the Harvard Westlake gates, which show the contrast of Buckley's rusty fence in the back. There are 4 houses basically right across from the 1,900 feet, but as Arnie Newman said, the street serves 350 homes in a fire zone, and this street has to be kept open. I spent $30,000 when we built our home. This is a picture of my street, which connects with Camino. I had to put in curbs and gutters and pave the street. It was 6% of my budget to build my house. We had to put, but we believe that Buckley has to adhere to the other requirements that the neighbors had to adhere to. And I also want to talk about the back gate. And I have
Okay, you have 1 minute left since we did allow the other speaker
I'll let the
more
speaker.
time. and
Okay, I
opportunity.
left my letter, which
Okay.
talks about the other conditions.
Okay, you have
Chair.
1 minute to spend.
And Ingrid Bergman also wrote, Ingrid Brown wrote it.
1 minute,
Hi.
Barbara.
Thank you very much for the extra time. I'm Ellen Vukovich. I'm a board member of Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. We represent literally thousands of impacted homeowners in the Sherman Oaks hillside and adjacent flats. I want to make a couple of housekeeping notations here. Granted, you will have the opportunity to review all of this information later. I'd like to call to your attention that Camino de la Cumbre, though classified as a rural street, although there's no formal policy in effect by Department of Transportation, it's no secret to all of us that are dealing with mitigating traffic impacts that DOT is encouraging, if you will, the use of streets in neighborhoods, hillsides, in order to move traffic through already congested areas. As a result, Camino de la Cumbre is not just used by the Buckley School. It is not just used by the 350 neighbors. Who uses it? It's used as an ulterior route to cut through the hillside. Therefore, it is very, very important, since it runs very close to Beverly Glen. In fact, if you take it all the way up, you go right into Beverly Glen, which takes you over to the west side of town.
Thank you, ma'am.
And so sorry, I get a little carried away. The point is that it has to be improved, and we're looking to you for that. I also want to say that on the Neighborhood Protection Fund, we need specifics spelled out, because there are too many issues. Unfortunately, Councilmember Weiss will not be here after to follow it through, and we're still waiting for the response to future funding for this plan, because this was negotiated through the Neighborhood Council. It's conditional, meaning it's our understanding if Buckley doesn't receive all the things that they have requested, that they could in fact reject paying this money. We also need to know if it's going to expire, if it has a sunset provision, and we'd like to know, and we'd like to discuss with our council member further, and I'm putting this on public record, further contribution for this fund. In addition,
Thank you very much.
Can I say what
no,
for?
That's it. That's it. Thank you. All right, that takes care of our appellants. We'll start through the cards, and we'll go 1 minute for each speaker card. And we'll start with Paul Edelman, then Ann Walnum, and then we'll have Joan Lutz.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Paul Edelman with the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. The Conservancy is very vested in this area.
I'm sorry, just hold on. Barbara, it's 1 minute? Yes, thank you.
We're very vested in this. Can I go ahead? No?
Go.
We're very vested in this area through Fossil Ridge Park and some other pieces we own. Our objective really here is just to save big native trees, to save the view shed from public spaces. Until this compromise was put out today by Buckley, that really hadn't been achieved, and the solutions didn't really look at what the real physical needs were. I think we're there today with this 55-foot section. 1 or 2 native trees may be impacted, but that's worth it. I think the key thing is just if we can vouchsafe exactly what this area is, so that we all walk away today, that we know that it's not going to grow, and BOE knows it's not going to shrink, and we go with that. So we're here to support the Buckley proposal that was put forward by you today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Below 1 minute. That's great. Ann Walnum? You could just come up to the microphone. And we're going to do 1 minute each speaker. That's it. 1 minute each speaker. No. 1 minute each speaker.
I wish to give my 1 minute to Joan Lux, the president of the Hillside Federation.
Ms. Wong, if we may, I'd like to hear from you, and we're going to give everybody 1 minute. We're going to stick with that rule. We're going to stick with 1 minute.
So just take it or leave it.
It's known as use it or lose it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Ms. Wong.
Well, I am here to support this compromise. I'm here to support the decision of Hillside Federation to do all possible to protect the trees, protect the neighborhood. And I'm really not the well-informed person that the next person will be. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. Ms. Lux, then we'll have Roy Schmidt.
Good afternoon. My name is Joan Lux. I am president of the Federation of Hillside and Canyon Association. My address is 3309 Cars Drive, Hollywood Hills, 90068. And I wish to say that the Hillside Federation on April 2nd voted not to widen, not to support gutters and curbs, and to basically, Paul Edelman said something very important. This particular street separates two major parks. We cannot lose the trees because it's where they perch, it's where they hide, it's where they nest. We must preserve it. The more recent sized-down version by Bureau of Engineering that is being proposed is a retaining wall that is only 50 feet long, 10 feet tall, but it's not going to be visible. It's below the street. It may take one tree, and it will resolve the problem. Now, I am concerned about the Sherman Oaks people and areas where there are, some impacts to their homes. But only thing I'm saying here before you is that the retaining wall that they are now proposing, let me just finish my sentence, but the retaining wall they are now proposing is less invasive and will not take trees. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Roy Schmidt, Debbie Berry, and then I believe it's Jerry Crump. I apologize.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I live at 3817 Holly Line. I've been a resident there for over 30 years. I've submitted to you a letter which sets forth a number of technical changes that really need to be made in the traffic mitigation. These are largely mistakes. I think they're probably not controversial. And in a minute, I won't be able to go through them with you. But the one thing I want to do is point out something that's not in the letter, which in looking at Lynn Harper's April 24th letter setting forth the various conditions, there's a critical typographical error in the mitigation provision that says what the AM reduction of trips will be. And the typographical error left out the number of for the trip reductions, which is, to my way of thinking, the most important language that should have been in the report. I'll give Lynn the language as I leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Our next speaker is Debbie Berry. Then we'll have Jerry Crump. And then Barbara Case.
May I relinquish my time to Vivian? No?
No, ma'am. You can use your time.
All righty. I'm Deborah Berry. I live on Dickens, right between Stansbury and Beverly Glen. The cumulative effect on the traffic would be no less than horrific at this point. Right now, I personally cannot even turn out of my driveway in my apartment house because the traffic from Stansbury to Beverly Glen is so backed up from car to car to car, you can't turn out. Oh.
Hi.
No, ma'am.
She's supposed to have relinquished her time.
We're not doing that, so please let her finish. Do you want to finish?
Okay. All righty. And so what I'm saying is that already all of the cumulative effect that's going to trickle down from additional trucks and construction and also just the added traffic going up this one major thoroughfare, as these other folks have already mentioned to you, would cause an enormous problem within all these little side streets and communities. I can't imagine what it's going to be like after the fact when right now it can't even hold what's going on right now.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Thank you for your cooperation. Jerry Crump, and then Barbara Case. Please give us your name and address.
Jerry Crump, 4020 Camino de la Cumbre.
And my wife and I have lived on Camino for 30-odd years, and our feeling is precisely about Camino. And really, I think we've got a tail wagging the dog here, because even though the city has jurisdiction over it in conjunction with the changes, it is really peripheral to the entire item of Buckley. And we really support, well, we supported the appeal of Arnie Newman, and we really now support the compromise. We think it's a good compromise, and we would hope that you would pass it.
Thank you, sir. Barbara Case, Ingrid Brown, and Geoff Case.
I want to say, first of all, has everybody seen these pictures again?
Yes.
There's much, much, much more than 55 feet. This street is so dangerous that this is why the whole Buckley School project didn't pass. And now it's being pushed through. And the truth is that it's all about the money. The school does not want to spend the money on this. Anyway, I would like to say that these improvements will help direct the storm drain water within the gutter towards the storm drains by preventing roadway flooding. Currently, Camino is edged with an asphalt berm, which does not effectively do this. The advisory agent, these are all quotes from the CUP and the EIR that recommends to have this work done. They are saying that they are going to have somebody from the Urban Forestry Division to save any trees. It's not really for Buckley about saving trees, it's about saving for money. For the neighborhood, we want to save the trees, we want to have a safe street. The fence also should be landscaped.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you much.
I'm sorry, who is next?
Ingrid Brown, Geoff
Okay.
Case.
Okay.
Oh, you already spoke with her? Can you just submit it to the record, please?
I've done that. May I read her letter aloud?
No, ma'am. Just send it to the.
All right.
Thank you. Geoff Case? Is it? You just submit it for the record and we'll read it. We'll have the file. Thank you. Rose Fay? Jeanette Monifred? And then Marcia, I believe it's Gal or Gail, I apologize. Please, ma'am, please give us your name and address.
Hi, my name is Rose Fahey, and I live on Camino de la Cumbre. If you aren't familiar with the area, it's unlikely you've been on Camino, but it is an extremely curvy hillside road. It serves a number of residential pockets, but isn't used beyond that. I understand that the condition required by the Planning Commission would require 200 lineal feet of very expensive retaining walls, but also require the protection of 100% of the mature trees. It is not at all clear how the condition would be met, because city departments would be working at cross purposes. This exposes this nonprofit school to potentially very high costs. I want to be able to focus its resources on its children. I would like to ask you to support the alternative proposal, as I believe it is a clearly defined amount of repair work that will provide real benefits to the community. Thank you for listening, and I hope you will support a better solution for all of us.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker.
Hi, my name is Marcia Gale. I've lived in Sherman Oaks on Valley Vista near the Buckley School for over 26 years, and I'm also a local realtor. I believe that rather than improving our community, the implementation of the Planning Commission's conditions for Camino de la Cumbre would create significant disruption without corresponding benefit. The environmental impact would be devastating, with a large number of trees that would have to be removed or would have their roots damaged to install retaining walls and deep footings, including, I believe, quite a few native trees such as California oaks. I understand that having concrete curb along Camino de la Cumbre would require many retaining walls with deep foundations to support the curb and road, which would be unwelcome in this beautiful canyon on a street that retains a rustic charm in the middle of our huge city. With such negative repercussions and broad local opposition to the proposed road work, I hope your committee will consider the school's proposal for a limited road repair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Kay Benston and Jay Spillane. The last two speakers.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
Good afternoon.
My name is Jeanette Monferrat, and I'm a Sherman Oaks resident who would like to go on record in opposition to the current proposal that the Buckley School undertakes significant work to improve Camino de la Cumbre with concrete curbs along its entire Camino de la Cumbre frontage. I believe the condition for the street is not in the best interest of the neighborhood or the school. The improvements required under that condition would harm the environment and be very expensive. My understanding is that this request is completely unrelated to the building project that Buckley has proposed because the school will be closing its back gate to most traffic that will greatly reduce its use of Camino de la Cumbre. Especially in light of that, I think imposing disproportional costs on a nonprofit school of over $1 million is inappropriate. I do not have children at Buckley, but value the school as an important community asset, and I hope you will minimize the burden on the school by approving their alternative proposal for limited road repair.
Thank you, ma'am. Jay Spillane and Kay Benston.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Spillane. I live at 3422 Glorietta Place, which is a block from Camino de la Cumbre. I'm a Buckley parent and a member of the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. I support the compromise proposal presented by Buckley's council. It is a very quiet, tree-lined rural street. Many of the beautiful trees come right up to the edge of the roadway. Our community uses the street for walks and jogs and dog walks and nature walks, and I'm very concerned about the statements from the various environmental groups about the impact on the trees, and I would support the most minimal improvement, the compromise improvement that would save as many trees as possible in the nature and character of that street, and therefore I believe that the compromise proposal submitted by Latham and Watkins would be the best outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Kay Benston. And that should close the public hearing.
Thank you. Hi, my name is actually Kay Bernstein. I live at 3900 Kingswood Road in Sherman Oaks, homeowner for 30 years. I've been asked to present a letter from another one of the Camino de la Cumbre residents. I'll just present it rather than read it to you. He is in support of the Buckley Compromise. He's also a Buckley parent and lives right on Camino de la Cumbre. My only comment is it's interesting to hear that those living on Camino de la Cumbre seem to be those in favor of the compromise that's being proposed by Buckley. And while I appreciate Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association's efforts to protect Sherman Oaks and their interests in what's taking place, I overwhelmingly hear that it's the neighborhood that's more interested in the compromise than not. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, so we've heard from the public.
Closes public hearing, correct?
Public hearing is closed.
Again, Ray Saidi, Bureau of Engineering. Behalf of City Engineer, Bureau of Engineering support the compromise conditions, which are clear and basically is a targeted conditions that improve the worst area of the Camino de la Cumbre. And what it does is basically limits the construction of the retaining wall to 55 feet, which is the worst part, and also the curb and gutter is out of the picture. In lieu of that, then would be a rolling curb, and as well as the dedication becomes future dedication. The area, basically the conditions are much clearer and serve the street much better than the existing condition, which is approved 6A, which is not clear, is ambiguous, and city engineer support the compromise conditions.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming, and I want to thank your department for working so closely with Ms. Kenworthy of my office and everybody on this problem for the past couple weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll make it very brief.
Please.
Because I've made statements about this before at the commission hearing and in council. But I do want both of you to know that while the hearing was going on, I did look up the word cumbre in an online dictionary, and it indeed means summit. Okay, so I didn't get to definition number 2. Definition number 1 is summit. Okay.
We believe.
Yeah, and pretty much everything has been said about why this compromise has come into existence and about the need for the school to shoulder some burden, but for that burden to be reasonable and for that burden to be consistent with the needs of the community, and this compromise indeed accomplishes that. One thing that Ms. Kenworthy of my office has done, which I think will be very helpful for everybody, is she has asked Bureau of Street Services to prioritize the street for street resurfacing for fiscal year 08-09 within CD5, and they've assured us that they will do that and that they'll work on resurfacing from Valley Vista to Coy Drive. That will have an impact, I think a positive impact here. And I've also asked, at her suggestion, because she is good at this, that between now and the Plum hearing, which will inevitably occur regarding the CUP, that Buckley will work with her and the community to try to find an appropriate compromise on areas relating to landscaping and beautification along the road. With that, I would move approval of the compromise proposal that has been put before the committee, and that's on green paper.
Okay.
Yeah, which includes a couple other conditions. That's it. Okay.
So, Madam Attorney, to make sure we put everything on the record correctly, are we granting anything in part here? So you have a series of conditions, and you do have some changes on others, so we can grant in part and deny in part?
Well, I think maybe we can get Ms. Harper up here to clarify the points of the appeal, and then we could decide exactly what you're doing.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon again, Lynn Harper. I'm kind of at a disadvantage here because I haven't seen these material before. In terms of the appeals themselves, are you asking me to work from the appeals as they were submitted, or these sheets from the Buckley School?
We're trying to identify the requested changes to parcel map conditions, and the conditions that have been stated in the green sheet, which seems to reflect what the council office is supporting.
Okay? So this green sheet that I'm holding up now.
And I think, Ms. Harper, the precise question that the chair is asking you is, since, as Ms. Seedorf-Cardenas has correctly pointed out, we are now standing in the shoes of the Planning Commission hearing the parcel map matter because we've asserted jurisdiction under Section 245 of the Charter. When I say I move this green piece of paper, Mr. Reyes wants to know, are we granting in part or denying in part certain appeals, and he wants those to be articulated.
Okay,
That's what you want.
I haven't seen the what your office submitted.
They're in agreement?
I mean, I keep hearing about the compromise. I don't know what that is, I guess.
Ms. Harper,
I haven't
let's do
seen
this.
it.
Ms. Harper, let's do this. I'm going to hold this on the table. I'll go to the next item. And if you can sit with the council office and all the parties involved, we can just make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay.
And can come forward with the different appeals with the appropriate conditional language.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, so
Just set it aside.
Right.
Any chance we could do number 14 next?
we're gonna go with 12. Well, let's see, what's 14?
I should have someone who needs to go, but if it's 14 have cards?
Yes, well, it has one.
Up to you, Mr.
Let's just do 12. Let's just go. Okay, item number 12. I'm gonna go to the restroom. Want to start this?
Hello, welcome. Can you give a little brief synopsis of this, please?
Thank you. Tom Glick, City Planning Department. I can make this extremely brief because I think the appeal, there's been a resolution between the Planning Department, the Council Office, and the appellant. February 21st, this went to Area Planning Commission. The zone change was approved. The yard variance was approved. The only thing that was a question was the yard variance, where the applicant was asking for a fourth unit because math wasn't in their favor. In a sense, they needed the variance to get the fourth unit. Planning Commission could not make the finding, partially because the city attorney was not in attendance, so there was not any legal representation to help the Planning Commission come to a finding. So with that, they just recommended disapproval of the variance. The applicant has appealed it, but I think the applicant was instructed to go to the council office, and I think with the council office and the applicant, they have worked something out. In the planning department, it's literally one unit, so it's not something that the planning department, we can help the applicant make the findings in this case because the council office and the applicant have worked it out. So the applicant is here, I'll let them speak.
Sure, thank you
The
very much.
appellant and the applicant.
Thank you. And the applicant here, the representative is John Perica, is that correct?
Yeah, there's plenty of these guys.
Good afternoon, members of the
Good afternoon.
Commission. John Perica, 10338 Etowanda Avenue, Northridge, California, 91326. On behalf of Lisa Jover, the applicant here. The applicant is proposing a 4-unit condominium project. The lot area would allow 3.8 units. The variance that was filed, and with your help will hopefully be approved, would allow the other 2/10 of the fourth unit to be legalized for that. That's the main issue. There's a secondary issue beside the yard variance, which is this had a zone change. There were queue conditions. Under the queue conditions environmental section, there were 2 conditions that were predicated on there being trees on the site. Do a tree report and replace any tree lost on a 2-for-1 basis. As you can see by pictures of the site, there are no trees on the site. We would ask that conditions 5 and 6 under the environmental queue conditions be removed. Briefly, a compromise we think has been worked out with the council office. They wanted to see a craftsman design of the project. Mr. Dale Thrush will address that momentarily. The Sunland-Tahunga Neighborhood Council supports the request for the variance, and a letter is in the file to that effect. Thank you.
Great, and it's good to see you back in City Hall, Mr. Perica.
It's a delight to be back, Councilman.
It's been a year already?
It's been 3.5 years. Yes.
Okay, it's good to have you. Okay, Mr. Thrush.
Good afternoon, Chairman Reyes, members of the committee. My name is Dale Thrush. I am Planning Deputy for Councilmember Wendy Gruhl. Council District 2 supports both the variance and the zone change. Currently, the zone and the general plan are inconsistent. The proposed zone change will bring them into consistency. Also, the proposed project is consistent with development patterns in the area along Apperson. We would support the variance for the reasons set forth in the proposed findings submitted by the applicant. We've asked them to redesign this project to make use of local form and materials palettes. They have done that. They've done a spectacularly good job, and as a result, the community is in full support. I just want to point out that this project is in Sunland-Tahunga, and there is not one person here to oppose it. That's how good a job they did. So with that, I'll close my remarks and urge you to recommend both the zone change and the variance to the City Council. Thank you.
So you want us to grant the appeal?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll grant the appeal filed by Lisa C. Jover as represented by John Perica, and thereby overturn the decision of the North Valley APC and approve a yard variance to permit a proposed fourth dwelling unit to have a reduced lot area of 2,114 square feet in lieu of the 3,000 square feet of lot area otherwise required in the proposed RD 3-1 zone for the property at 7117 West Apperson Street. So that'll be the action of this committee.
We have findings that have been submitted by the applicant. I think we need new findings by the planning department as well as make a decision, the committee needs to make a decision about the conditions number 5 and 6 for the zone change. If they're approved to be deleted.
For the record, Sharon Cedar of Cardenas, I just spoke with the planner on this item, and those two conditions are part of the mitigated negative declaration, and so I would suggest that you not remove them.
Okay, so we can go ahead and grant the appeal with all of the...
Right, grant the appeal on the variance, adopt the findings submitted by the council office for the approval of the variance, but do not modify the conditions on the zone change.
Okay, okay. Are we fine? All right, that'll be the action of this committee. Roberto, next item. Thank you.
The next item, Councilman, is item 14, is an appeal by 1615 Veteran LTD, and they're represented by Ben Manish, and it's an action of the Central Area APC as relates to a tract map for an 8-unit condo building. 8-unit condominium conversion in CD5.
Good afternoon. I'm Sterling Barnes. I'm with the City Planning Department, City Planning Associate. I've been staff with regards to this project since its inception. In September of 2007, this project, an 8-unit apartment building, was brought before the Deputy Advisory Agency for approval to be converted to an 8-unit residential condominium conversion with 8 parking spaces in lieu of the required 16 parking spaces. And the Deputy Advisory Agency took an action to deny the request. They also denied it based on its notification process. The appellant appealed to the Area Planning Commission, and the Area Planning Commission sustained the action of the Deputy Advisory Agency. The appellant again appealed, and this time followed the directions called for in the code, and with the council office, and has developed what may be a considerable, an acceptable project. Staff remains available to answer any questions you might have after you've talked to the appellant. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take the report. We do have one card on this item. That's Mr. Ben Manish. Are you here? Ben Manish. Or Manish? This is the applicant and the owner. Is he in the room?
This doesn't exist. You've gotten rid of this. But it still doesn't exist. No, it doesn't.
Okay. Sarge, could you see maybe he's out in the hallway? Mr. Ben Manish, the owner. So we'll make sure we don't move without his...
Because this doesn't exist. Planning doesn't even send this out anymore. It took us 2 hours to... Exchanges were there. That was the 5 hours.
Okay, then we'll start the deliberation.
All right. Close the public hearing, correct?
Close public hearing.
My understanding, Mr. Reyes, is that there are 4 agreements that have been reached here that are all for the good. The applicant offered existing tenants the first right to purchase units at a 5 to 10% reduced market rate price. The applicant is committed to allow the tenants to remain in their units until the tenants volunteer to leave and amended their agreements accordingly. The applicant is going to pay all the tenants increased relocation costs whenever they decide to move. And the applicant will make 2 units moderate and will make 2 of the units low income. So my recommendation, Mr. Folletti's recommendation,
okay,
but I'm good with it, is to adopt the agreements as conditions of approval on the track map, and to adopt new findings that overturn the prior denial of the application.
Okay,
Let's do this as an exhibit.
so, Madam Attorney, this is the granting part and denying part as well?
I'm sorry, Councilman. I wasn't listening.
Got you wide-eyed right there.
Sorry. Could you repeat that, please?
Councilman Weiss has read it into the record, the conditions of approval, given the owner's cooperation and how he's going to structure the condo conversion plan that has been offered. And he is in agreement with that condition. So my assumptions are that we would grant in part and deny in part, or?
My recollection is that the advisory agency had originally denied this particular project. So what you need is you need to grant the appeal, thereby approving the conversion. You need to adopt findings in support of the approval, and you need to add conditions.
Okay, with the conditions that have been stated.
Yes, Michael Young, Deputy Advisory Agency in the Division of Land. In that regard, the city attorney is correct. You're granting the appeal, overturning the action of the Area Planning Commission and approving this particular tentative track. In that, we have prepared a letter of determination for the council's consideration, and I'm here, we're willing to pass that out for your consideration.
Great. Okay.
That's fine. All right, so with that, that's a motion.
All right, so that'll be the action of this committee with the directions as detailed by our attorney and staff, given the conditions provided by the council office. All right.
In
Anything
addition
else?
to that, there were findings that was made, and the findings can be made, so in the affirmative.
And we'll include the findings as prescribed.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, so we have to go back to number 11 and close the chapter on that one. Is everybody on the same page on that issue? Let's see, Councilmember, do you have?
We'll just let the attorneys handle it. Do you have a?
Do we have the closing instructions for this case?
For the record, Sharon Cito of Cardenas, City Attorney's Office. I believe that Ms. Kenworthy has a stack of conditions that are, we can call Exhibit A for the clerk's convenience, and then we have the conditions on the green paper that was submitted by the Buckley School. So what you're doing is you are granting in part the appeal, and I know there's 3 appeals, but you're granting in part the appeals, and I think planning will have to tell us whether you're granting the Sherman Oaks homeowners appeal at all. You're going to substitute the conditions in Exhibit A along with the amendments on the green sheet for the conditions that were imposed by the advisory agency. Okay?
That sounds right. I mean, look, that sounds right. What's important is that we put substance over form, and the substance of what we're doing is contained in the documents that have the actual operative language. And
As long as it holds up in court, we're fine.
I think it's fine.
Okay. All right, so that'll be the action of this committee. Ms. Sterritt.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just submit into the record the decision of the City Planning Commission, which granted in part and denied in part all the appeals. It adopted a number of conditions and findings.
What's the purpose of that?
And that is because the action that you take today will be on top of this action. So you'll have both.
But I mean, it's already
you'll
in
have both in the
it's
record.
already in the record. I mean, it is. No, it's not in the record. I don't know. All right. So now there are 2.
Just making sure.
All right.
Making sure.
That's cool.
Bigger binder.
Just to make it
larger
clear, there
file.
were 3 appeals. Are we granting in part all 3 appeals?
No, we are setting conditions for each of the appeals as defined
You're
by
granting
the
all the appeals in
instructions.
part.
Okay, to grant all of the appeals. Oh, thank you. In part. Okay.
Okay. All right, we're all set, I think.
Okay.
All right, folks, granting in part all the appeals
I
with the
interject
conditions.
something? I'm sorry.
There were two appeals that were for the Buckley project. The other appeal by Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association was against this project.
Okay,
And
I just want to be clear that each appeal was granted in part.
I see.
So each conditions that have been specified by the parties are going to allow us to move forward with the conditions as stated by the different parties.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. All right, so that concludes that item. Anything else, Roberto?
Public comment, Council.
Anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Go Lakers.